Welcome to IB Unplugged, a Cognity podcast for IBDP educators that tackles your submitted challenges and questions by connecting you with experts and peers who share their ideas and stories from real classrooms. Whether you're a seasoned educator or new to the IB world, each biweekly episode and guest aims to equip you with practical tips and positive inspiration, helping you teach with more confidence, creativity, and joy. So whether you're walking your dog or commuting to school, hit play and join a community of educators ready to learn, laugh, and thrive in your IB journey. Hi, everybody, and welcome to IB Unplugged, a special episode because we're joining you from South Africa. We are at the American International School in Johannesburg, part of the African Education Festival, where we've had a chance to speak with lots of really cool people. And today, we're bringing an episode to you with Haif Bannayan. He's the Global Director of Business Development at the IB and responsible for expanding the IB across the globe, both to interested and existing schools. So really wanted to take a chance to talk with him about why is that such an important thing? Why is it so important that we can get this sort of IB philosophy, IB education system out across the globe a little bit more?
Yeah, and Haif had so many great points. We're going to be talking about this idea of shared humanity and what is a future-ready student. And I think that when we talk with people from the IBO, I just love that it shows that it's an organization full of a lot of humans that really care about what the IBO is striving for. It's not a big machine with a bunch of kind of people cogs in it who are just thinking about the business side of it, but it's things that they're thinking really critically about and bringing all of their own unique backgrounds and experiences too. And I love the topic. I love how much that the IBO actually does care about the development of the students, not just the academic side of what this curriculum actually is. So I'm really happy to be able to do this.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So for those of you who got into education so you could have a meaningful impact in the world, not just have some qualified people, this episode's got everything for you. So we hope you enjoy, and let's get on to the show with Haif Bannayan.
Hi, Haif. Welcome to IB Unplugged. We're so excited to talk to you, especially in real life here at the African Education Festival.
Hi, Courtney. Hi, John. It's really a pleasure to be here with you guys. It's very exciting, especially being on this continent and this amazing weather.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We're enjoying the sunshine. So to kick us off, I thought that we would be able to give a little bit of background. So for everyone who doesn't know, Haif works at the IBO, but you have had a long journey and a long career that got you to the point here. And I was wondering if you could talk about why you led your career into the place where you are now working in international education.
That's a very good question. And if we expect to finish our education with a certain degree and have our career path planned for the next 30 years, I think we should revise our strategy for that. Because in my mind, I graduated in chemical engineering, worked in industrial and a master's degree in industrial management, worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a while. And then I was like, you know what? This is nice, but I want something more in the public space. And I'm originally Jordanian. I'm now based in the Netherlands, but I'm Jordanian. And back then there was this, funny enough, this half Dutch minister of information communications technology who was really revamping the whole technology space in Jordan and really bringing foreign investment, bringing multi-stakeholder partnerships. And I was like, yeah, this is exciting. I really want to move there. And if you connect that with education, really, I feel that a good education is that one that helps you recognize your core competencies as you develop them after university and how you leverage those to transition from one working space to another. I don't particularly believe that one must stick in one career path, and I really value the opportunity that I had to change career paths. So anyway, cut a long story short, I joined the Ministry of ICT, and then after that, I was like, okay, I wanted to leave that public space, but I still wanted to work in the public area for more public benefit. And Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah, she was very much focused on technology, education, and she had many initiatives related to that. And I was invited to lead one of her initiatives, which is called the Jordan Education Initiative, focused on technology integration in education.
Wow.
And after that, she was like, okay, you're done here. Now move to Queen Rani Teacher Academy, where I had the pleasure to work more closely with education and with teachers. And this is where I believe fundamentally teachers are the key, most important thing to really shape the world moving forward. And with our programs that we've introduced in the public space, we were able to witness how the classroom environment, in a typically didactic, very standard kind of traditional way of teaching in the public space, how that just changed just through the teacher training with minimal resources that were in the schools. And from then I had the opportunity to meet IB, and I attended one of the global conferences at IB, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, seeing all those teachers and how vibrant the education space is and how excited those educators were and how much they love IB. And I was like, of course, I forgot to mention I'm an IB parent. I have 2 adult kids who have graduated from IB. So I know what IB can do and what kind of impact it has on young citizens. So seeing this, I was like, I want to do this in the Arab world. And I launched a conference that's bilingual, Arabic and English, in partnership with IB, and also bringing, obviously, Queen Rani Teacher Academy, kind of all the educational offering that we can deliver, and we delivered it for a while in the Middle East. And that led to closer ties with IB, and then the opportunity came to apply for a position for Global Director of Business Development. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply.
This is it.
And 7 years later, I'm here. And it's been fantastic.
What an incredible journey, really. And I loved listening to that story there. And I think one thing that stuck to me, and I think it's probably just because I'm a teacher, you said, teachers here, that's kind of the main place where we can really move things forward in our entire global society.
And I've witnessed it firsthand, John. Honestly, it's I've seen teachers who, just by being guided with some key, like really good professional development opportunities, they've turned around the classrooms. In many cases, key concepts in science, in math, in languages that they were not able to engage the students with, just by getting those, they have turned around the classrooms. I've also had the chance to work with educators in areas where we had crisis. For example, when we had the Syrian refugee crisis, we had classrooms that had more than 50 students. Many of those students were traumatized. And teachers were unable to deal with it. So we introduced this program to help them manage such large classrooms. So it's not always... and that's the thing, also a stigma about the IB. People always expect that IB schools have to be those big, grandiose buildings. Yes, we are present in a lot of those, but it's really about the teaching. It's really about the teachers, and less about those kind of resources, to be honest.
You're highlighting a lot of like the purpose of education, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes beyond these specific aspects of chemistry or biology or English, whatever it might be. But it sounds like you're really drawing into these things where education has a purpose in a wider reach. Was there a specific moment, and maybe this was one of them, where you said, like, this is the purpose of education. This is like why it's so important.
Other than education, it being a basic right, I also think it's like a passport. It's a world passport. Like how you see passports around the world with different nationalities can open certain doors for you. Like certain passports, how they're classified, that you can go without visas with this passport, you need to have this type of visas. Good quality education unlocks so many opportunities around the world. And this is how you become a global citizen. I love when students leave their countries, go back and serve their countries. But I also like the fact that to think of myself as a global citizen, that I'm able to function in a non-siloed manner. I've studied abroad, but I went back to Jordan. I worked until I was 50 in Jordan. And then I was like, you know what? It's time for me to serve other causes. And I think it's my education coupled with my experience that helped do that. And I think this is what a good education does. When we moved to the Netherlands, my daughter was in MYP, and she was in the middle year, like she was, I think, grade 7 or 8, moved to the Netherlands. And it was because she was moving from one MYP school to another MYP school, it was like plug and play. She knows exactly what needs to be done. It's not hard to orient. Yeah. She just focused on her flourishing. Yeah. She focused on making connections, understanding the country she's working with, and making good relations. And, like both my kids have studied at Dutch universities and are doing fine. So I think this is what's important about education.
In this episode, I think we're really going to be focusing on this concept of what should education look like in this idea of shared humanity, really connecting to the the African Education Festival that we're at right now, but also this idea of what is future-ready learning. And I'm wondering if you were walking into a classroom today and you felt like this is future-ready learning, what would that classroom look like to you?
Good question. I haven't been in many classrooms as a teacher, but what I would like to see is diverse representation in the classroom. And I like to see different modes of engagement, but focused on a common goal. And I think that is maybe the essence of shared humanity, where you have like this, it's about reciprocity. It's about doing things with each other, capitalizing on different strengths and filling in the gaps where there are some weaknesses, I suppose. Not everybody learns the same way. And that cookie cutter approach is long gone. But I think it's even more applicable now. And that's a learning that we at IB are looking at, to say, going into different countries and working with different communities, it's not going to be the same across on a global level. And it needs to be contextual. It needs to be closer to the community. It needs to be relevant to the governments and what's the direction of that community and build on that.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Do you have any examples of any kind of countries where you felt like there was this really important contextual change that the IB has had to make that you've been working with?
I think the essence of it is collaboration. So like we recently launched a project in Bahrain. And they came to us and they're like, we're looking to pilot in one boys' school and one girls' school. We want to do the diploma. And so we had several meetings with them. And then looking at where they are, we're like, guys, maybe diploma is not the best place to start. Because there is the way you teach in government is very different from how IB does things. And that quick shift from middle schools to the high school into the diploma might be a little bit of a challenge for the students. Sure. Plus, they predominantly teach in Arabic. They teach English, but they predominantly teach in Arabic. The educators teach in Arabic. So I think there was was quite a journey that we need to work with them on. That's why, for example, we said let's start with MYP, and maybe you should look for ways to strengthen the English competencies for your teachers as well as for your students. And once you do that, we'll transition to the diploma. And conversations with the minister, he was like, this is great, and I don't want 2 schools only. I want 8 schools. So we ended up.
And you went, excellent. Let's
Yeah.
do exactly
it ended up being a sizable pilot. It ended up being 8 schools implementing 16 programs. So we're just at the beginning of doing that. And so that process is a lot of shifting in the minds and how the different governments want to work, and we try to meet them where they are. Last year we launched a project in Paraguay, and they're like, we don't want the IB programs in our school, in our public schools. It's basically for affordability, for rolling out, but we love the IB pedagogy and we need your help. So we developed a program to help them train teachers, assess the competencies, assess what is missing, and we're currently in implementation phase of this project. So we're really diversifying how we're working with different governments and different community members to meet them where they really want to be.
Yeah. It's great because now if I think back to what you were mentioning before with regard to our shared humanity and the reciprocity and this idea of like meeting people where they're at, I want to dive now into kind of our main segment here, which is about that shared humanity, the purpose of education. And you kind of alluded to it there just a moment ago. I wonder if we could draw that out a little bit more. What does shared humanity really mean to you, I guess, now in the context of education today?
We live in really unprecedented times. I mean, when I reflect on the past 7 years, COVID, wars, displacement, refugees, AI. So not all bad. But I don't want to put. I'm one person
Mostly bad, and then
who
some.
doesn't want to put AI in that. But there's a lot of technological advancement, and I think governments and schools and people are unable to, when it comes to technology, are unable to filter out what's good and what's not.
Right.
What works for them and what doesn't. There's this fear that you find two camps mainly in different conversations. You find a camp that's stay away, this is not education, and a camp that says, oh, we want to integrate it in our education system. And I'm like, AI is not new. It's a natural evolution to the technological development that has been going on for decades right now. So I think we are with this in mind, or at least that's my personal belief. You'll find that there is a stronger need for that personal connection among humans, finding that common shared belief, the ethics, the empathy, the love, the relationships. And you find that that is missing. So I think going through all the education revolutions around the world, it started with educating with people needing their bodies and their muscles, and then went into people needing their minds and their knowledge. Now it's a time, I think, that connection between the mind and the heart, and leading to things where there is empathy, there is love, there is understanding, there is that shared beliefs and values. So there's a emphasis on that. Like people are saying, "Oh, technology is bad." It's bad if you use it in a wrong way. Social media is bad. Yes, if you use it, if you abuse it, yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's there. It's like you as a human being, like the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not. If you don't do this in the physical space, don't do it in the virtual space. So it's really applying those constructs. And in my view, this is shared humanity, is really finding that space where I live freely, but my freedom stops when it starts imposing on yours. And I think, it should be the same. And then we can merge when we have common beliefs and common values and that kind of empathy, working with each other. And I think that's the essence of developing those global citizens who are critical thinkers, who can see that for them. You can't stay with your kids and say, do this and don't do that. What you need to do is build that competency in their minds to differentiate between what is good, what works, what they shouldn't do, and what aligns with their human values. I think there has been a diversion from the human values a little bit, from the empathy with the world that's happening around, and sometimes we find it hard to explain basic politics to our kids with what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's how do you do that? Applying that moral compass, I suppose.
Yeah.
As I'm listening to you, Haif, I'm constantly thinking of the context as well, because I'm hearing these things that I really agree with. And I love the idea of let's connect with the ethical considerations, the love, the relationships of what's going to be important there. And I especially love what you just said, where, my freedom stops being my freedom when it imposes on somebody else's. And I'm wondering, these can be very contextual specific ideas sometimes. And I guess, is it kind of a teasing out of like, where is the part that I guess the IB or kind of our international approach to education isn't necessarily contextually specific. It is something that we can all share. yet at the same time, recognizing the specific contextual values that might be present in, for example, here in South Africa or in, I don't know, Austria or in Japan or something like this. Is this the idea?
If I understand your question correctly, it's more or less the idea. I think it's with some emphasis on having that compass inside you to be able to sense what really works in different contexts and what doesn't. Because as you travel around the world, and if you're preparing the students for a global world, you need them to understand a little bit about the context where they're going and how they can navigate social norms, political norms, how to act, how to behave. And it's easier said than done, right? But I think if you teach them that kind of logic, that kind and empathy to really be able to navigate and really sense the room where they are in, it becomes easier and makes you avoid putting yourself or them putting themselves in awkward situations.
Yeah.
Here I'm hearing IB learner profile now.
Yeah.
Right. All that stuff's coming in my head right now. Right. That I'm knowledgeable, I'm thinking, I'm caring, I'm reflective. All that stuff is now where it's like, I don't necessarily, yes, if I had the time or if I'm able to, I want to research about the place first, but I might not have that. But if I've developed those learner profile attributes, I'm able to present myself in a way that can be respectful, that can be open, that can learn from other people and grow together.
Absolutely. And I think, I've visited a lot of schools and you hear a lot of students blurting out their learner profile and I'm a risk taker.
There it was.
And I'm like, to what extent do they know what they're saying and to what extent they experience it? And I think maybe, and that's just coming out right now in as a thought process, maybe help them live out those attributes, help them feel how they would apply that in that global settings.
Yeah.
Then it becomes more than just an idea. It becomes more, this is how I'm a thinker. This is how I'm reflective. This is how I'm an empath. This is, like the understanding, or like when they do something and like I remember, like I come from very traditional education in my schooling, and I remember when the first time I did a career jump, a friend of mine came to me. He's like, "Man, you're such a risk taker," and I was like, "Was that a risk?" I honestly, and in my adult, I didn't even think it was a risk. It was instinctively, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But now, when I reflect, when he mentioned it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that is a risk. I did make a risk." So I think people need to understand that and experience it more to ground it in their brain, in their their being.
Exactly. Something that keeps coming up in the different things that you're saying, and something that when we were talking about a question of what comes up regularly in all of these conversations that we have in the podcast, the immediate reaction was like, oh, AI is mentioned all the time. But something that I think a bit deeper is I feel like in the last couple of years, we've been talking about like the word human, I feel like comes up way more now.
Yeah.
I guess because it's always in opposition
it's the contrast of AI.
Yeah. But it's something that I think was taken for granted a lot of like not what does it mean to be human, but what does it mean in education to be thinking about humanizing pedagogy or the human development of these students. And I think like the shared humanity of, you were talking about empathy, you're talking about ethics, and then that, I guess it turns into global responsibility. Putting all of these things together, in some ways, I think a lot of people think, oh, maybe it's up to the parents to teach values or things like that. Why do you think it's so critical for schools to be teaching and preparing students for a shared humanity? Like the school's responsibility, why is that so important and critical?
I love that question. First of all, I cannot assume that the parents know all this.
Yeah.
That's number one. Second, kids spend 8 hours a day of their day at work in the school.
Yeah.
Many parents now are working, so they come back and they do a lot of that. They have to look after the house and all that. They don't have enough time to spend with the kids. Obviously, when you growing up growing up your child, you try as much as possible to put in these humanistic values in there. But let's say the parents should be putting the essence, the grain, the initial grain of it. But then the school needs to nurture that and grow it, because that's where kids spend a lot of time. And that's why you find a lot of kids at a young age, they idolize their teachers, right? And because they see them as equivalent to their parents and they listen to them. So a teacher's impact on a student cannot be undermined. And that's why it's like you can't tell your son or your child the house needs to be clean, but outside in the street it can be dirty because it's not ours. It's that you teach them something at home. They has to see the continuum. They have to apply it in their relationships, in their friendships, in the schools with their teachers, in their careers. It has to continue. Otherwise, it doesn't come across as good education. So I really feel that it's a collaborative approach. Obviously, it's not only the schools, but the schools have a major role in this, I think.
Are you an IB educator wanting to improve your practice and needing just a bit more support getting there? Have you ever wanted to learn more about a specific aspect of the DP program or ask a question to an educational theorist about a specific IB aspect? IB Unplugged is the place for you. Simply visit cognity.com/IB Unplugged to submit your question to us and have your question explored in more detail in an upcoming episode. And now, back to the show.
We're talking about really important values and really important roles of educators, and I'm all for it. I love it because I'm on board with the idea. I think that is why I got into education. I think that's why a lot of teachers get into education as well, is they recognize that responsibility. And sometimes we can also get focused on academic outcomes, right? Especially in the diploma program. We have to know this specific thing. I got to know this thing to meet this qualification so then I can get on to university and beyond. And what we're talking about here is about developing compassion and ethics and, beautiful human beings. How do we make that transition? How do we make that happen so that educators see themselves kind of beyond the academic outcomes they're trying to create, but rather molders of these beautiful human beings that we're talking about?
I've seen an example. I'm not going to promote a school over the other, but I've seen it in a school. I did see it in one school that really the results are not even spoken about. And the kids during the diploma, the results, there wasn't even any kind of concern about the results. And I've seen the opposite. I've seen schools where they celebrate the students who get over 40. And that really upset me, because are you saying that the students who got 35 or 36 are bad? Or are you saying the students who got 28 or 20 or even 24 and just passed the diploma?
Right.
That's a humanity part where this person who just passed or got 25 or 24 might have put in a lot of effort to achieve that. And that should be celebrated. So I think it's really, and again, this beckons the focus on the humanity. It's like, how far did that student evolve and how much effort have they put in and how well rewarded were they?
Yeah.
And well rewarded doesn't mean a 45 or a 42. It could mean that, he or she were about to fail and they didn't, and they got the diploma. And you know what? I haven't seen an IB student who didn't get into university, who wanted to go into university, who didn't get into university, right? Even with just courses. They all get into universities and they are all great. And what makes them great isn't the fact that they got a 7 in physics. It's about the competencies and the skills that they have to be university ready and how they navigate university life and how they handle it.
This is awesome. I'm literally you can probably feel it. I'm like filling up with tingles right now. This is awesome because I think there are educators that believe this, what you're saying right now. And I think we know it. And then there's this pressure of, we need to have great scores. That's ultimately kind of what it comes down to. And that's the tangible thing that parents or that wider society can relate to say, well, this is now a value. But it's so enriching and encouraging to hear you, and I'm going to go ahead and widen this, representatives of the entire IB, saying that it's more about the development of the human than it is about whatever number could express about that individual.
Absolutely. You know what? One thing that you just mentioned, an area that we talk about a lot in the IB, but we haven't been able to really unlock it, is I think we owe it to the parents and the community to explain what's it about.
Right.
And that direction about how the human aspect of things. I don't think we are able to, because technically speaking, we work with schools, and I can't go into a country and say, "Hey guys, come, let's talk." Right? But I think we can do it through schools. I think we're more and more thinking that we need to be, as part of us getting closer to the community and being more in countries, we are really thinking of, okay, let's have quality circles with parents.
Mm-hmm.
Let's create some awareness for parents. Let's really make them see what's important, and let's help schools identify how to focus on the human element as opposed to the results at the end of that number.
Yeah. This is where I feel a personal responsibility, though. As a DP coordinator in my school, in my context, I would say that's more my responsibility to share that with the community. I'm at a closer connection with those parents and with those students to really help to contextualize what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So while I appreciate, we want to draw closer to schools and help them know, I personally feel that's on me. That's on me as a DP coordinator, and to make sure that I'm contextualizing this for the parents and for the students and people who come into the school, because the reality is the IB experience that those students, those parents are going to have comes down to the interactions they're having with those teachers, the interactions they're having with me as a DP coordinator. And therefore, I have a responsibility, a reciprocity, as you were talking about before, to communicate the shared humanity intentions of the IB.
Right. And if the conversation is always around the academic rigor and the scores and that piece, which is really important, but I think it's from every parent conference that you have, from every wider meeting or the narrative that you're creating, if you're always talking about the academic rigor, the scores, even if you're just prioritizing, okay, next step is mock exams, like if you're always talking about those elements and not talking about the cultivating humanity and the flourishing of the students, then of course that's what the community is going to think that it's about.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I want to kind of unpack a little bit more about what you were talking about before with regard to the challenges we're seeing ourselves presented with now. And, I think there's many global challenges that drawing us to try to create a more equitable world. And I know that's a big part of our mission itself. How, in your view, does education play a role in addressing those global challenges? How does education create that more equitable world?
We have been, at the IB, we've been really playing with the construct of education for flourishing. Mm-hmm. The focus has been top of mind, is that how do we evolve our education to really focus on flourishing, that mind-heart connection.
Yeah.
There's a lot of effort that's being done at the IB Education Office to really look at that, and there are several pilots that have been released that really address some of these things at a small scale. Still, we're still just barely scratching the surface. But certainly, education needs to, in general, not just IB. I think education, first of all, needs to get out of its silos. If it's siloed, you cannot keep on. You find higher education siloed in one space. You find industry in one space, and you find usually K-12 is the space where mostly they work on themselves all over on global level, but still they need a lot of support. I think it's around building on what we consider a challenge. So let's take, for example, AI. I've heard it from people who are saying, "Oh, with AI, young citizens are going to be so dumb. I'm like, why? Right. There was a time where we didn't need to write, and then we evolved into we need to write, and we needed to write really well. We needed to have good handwriting, and then we went like it's an evolution. Now it's a time. It's not about only research. The facts are there. The internet taught us that. But now the next step is it's how do I help those students ask the right prompts to get the best outcomes from AI to deliver their assignment or to deliver their report? So it's really that kind of alignment around those challenges to really help them with that connection. How can I leverage social media in a way that creates more understanding about world issues in a way that has empathy, humanity, but also teaches them stuff that around education that you need to do. It's really integrating all those things and creating that which IB does very well. As you would know more than I would, practitioners. But I'm just saying that these are some of the things that where education could lead to more humanity. I think one of the things I've heard the education office often talk about is that how can we keep the academic rigor but make it maybe less stressful to allow that space more for that creativity, innovation, and that kind of space for humanity to flourish and to have those conversations that the students very much need. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's just a multitude of thoughts that came to my mind.
I mean, it's a multitude of, I guess, it's a complex way of approaching it. You know? But I think fundamentally, if we're in education, we believe that it is a powerful tool that we can use to impact the world in positive ways. And so, yeah, whether it's reframing the way that we think about one particular issue or understanding the evolution of where we're at now and how we need to cultivate things differently than the way I might have experienced them when I went to school, right? The education that we are developing and collectively creating isn't an exact replication of what we all experienced in our own educational experiences. So that's where I think at least that's what I'm taking from what you've said, is to address the global problems that are going on right now. First, we have to be a learner and we have to be open to what is going on and then recognize what does the situation need that might be different to what I grew up with or what my training taught me however many years ago.
Yeah. No, and I think that it's also about this is such a good time for the IB, for schools, for everyone to be reflecting on what actually is important to teach when something like AI comes about. I mean, I think there's been such a glorification of the education shaped around a book, like a printed, like knowledge and printed text are just this interchangeable, unbreakable piece. And this is really challenging that. There were so many civilizations and times and oral storytelling and, you know, all of these things that transferring knowledge doesn't have to be with a body of text. And I think AI has opened up this conversation of then what actually matters. It's so much of education was shaped around what matters when we talk about knowledge through that printed space. Now we're saying, well, let's revisit this and what actually matters. And what you're saying is this shared humanity, empathy. What are the ways to prepare students to take on those global responsibilities? And I love that the IB is really evaluating these different pilots on what could change that will make students still feel also future ready. Like, what are those skills? And I'd love to kind of dive a bit more into that of, for you now, what do you think a future ready student looks like?
First of all, I have to say that I really like what you just said about that evolution of the value of the book and the printed. And now it became maybe one of the resources that would be used, and it doesn't even need to be printed, and it could be online. And I think that is part of that evolution that we need to go for. Yeah. There are a few attributes that I really find very important for humanity to flourish in the future, and I even gave that to my son as advice. Empathy is my number one. It's really that emotional intelligence, understanding where you are, understanding the context, being well read and well aware of around it, and then positioning yourself in a way that comes across as respectful and empathetic. The second thing is perseverance. The world is becoming harder, and we should not expect it to become easier. There's going to be, with more advancement, even forget wars or bad things, even with it's becoming more competitive. Yeah. And I've even witnessed it, like when if I had kept my kids in Jordan, then they would have competed in that limited space in Jordan to find a job. Now they don't need to do that. Now they can work at the bare minimum across the whole of Europe if they don't want to work even outside. And that becomes harder to distinguish yourself, becomes harder to stand out so that you can find the right job and the right place. Mm-hmm. So I think it's that kind of perseverance that is really important in to have inbuilt in you. And the third thing that I really value is resilience, because things will continue to come your way. Challenges at older ages, challenges always come. You always face a problem at work, in your life, and if you're just gonna break down at that, then it's not helpful to you or to anyone around you. So I think resilience is a very important attribute that you'd need to have. Obviously, you'll. That's not to replace all the important things that you really need to understand. Like as we said, like understand what AI and what can AI do to me, and how can I do it? How can I use it in a way that's ethical and useful? So all these competencies are very important and continue. Like we always say that the IB student is always university ready. They know how to research. They know how to write. An essay, they know how to respond, present. So these continue to be very important attributes, but it's just making that extra mile where you're seen for who you are as a human being is probably the hardest thing to do, but it will come with those underlying kind of competencies.
Yeah. If you can show who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so critical to be able to present yourself, like to know who you are internally, but also be able to explain that and present that externally. Yeah.
And, I hear that a lot, especially when you go outside of the Western world and you talk about IB and it's, we don't want to be international. We're proud of where we are. And I'm like, we absolutely love that. You should be proud of who you are. And the first thing for you, as you just rightfully said, Courtney, know who you are, love it, respect it, because then when you do, you present yourself in a better way, and you don't present yourself as a subservient human being to the person in front of you. You present yourself as a whole and really deserving, and you will command respect from the people in front of you, even if you don't have the same resources or same education or anything like that. It's very, very important.
Mm-hmm. It feels like what we've been talking about this entire time is a rethinking of education. Mm-hmm. It's thinking more about how we can develop really valuable attributes and really valuable young people who go on who do great things around, and not great things as in like I've done something very impactful and I've made a lot of money, but great things around sharing humanity and helping bring out the best of each other, right? That real flourishing aspect. So I guess if you could say anything to any educator that's listening to us right now that would maybe challenge or maybe just say, hey, move this way. This is kind of what we're hoping for. This is what we need from our educators. This is what we need from our students in our classrooms. We want you to go in this direction. What would it be?
Strangely enough, the first thing that popped into my mind is that don't undermine the value of making an impact on one student. It's... I know we like you as a teacher, you'll have to manage large classrooms and you have too many of them, but you have the chance to change the life of those students. And sometimes you will have that one student that is not responding to the typical ways or not being part of the group, and that this is where you can create really your mark in really saving that person and really creating the next scientist in the world or the next. Like even not that, just helping that person find themselves is very important. So I would say it's be more human, and I know most teachers have that. Most passionate teachers have that human in them, because they like to do it, because they have that connection. And I think just continue to be more human and to connect with the students. And my ask is for the teachers who don't feel that they have it in them, don't be teachers. Don't do it as a job, honestly.
Yeah.
I know a lot of teachers who do this as a job. You can't be. It's a demanding job. It's a human job. It's hard. And in many cases, not as rewarding as many other careers around the world, financially maybe, right? But and that's why you really need to be invested, because it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And I'm saddened when I go into schools and see a lot of teachers who are just doing it as a job.
And it's so obvious.
It's so obvious.
Really quickly.
And you know what? It's destructive, because if you don't like it, you're not gonna be embracing for your kids. You're not gonna support them. You're not gonna care if they're down or if they're not feeling well. It's very important. So, like, math is not one of my key strengths, and I'm told by my kids that I'm the best math teacher. And you know why? It's because I put myself in their shoe. Why don't they understand?
Right.
And I remember what didn't I understand? And that's how I deliver the message. That's the kind of thing that, like, the teacher has to step out of their way to really deliver the good education for their kids.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'd love to flip the question then to you and to your career of what is something that you've been doing at the IB that you're either really proud of, or an initiative that you've felt like has had a really strong impact that you could share with us?
One that I'm very proud of, but it's maybe not too visible to outside the IB, but it's really helped create with my team a different approach to creating a market space, to really approaching schools in a proactive way, rather than just respond to those interested schools. Obviously, we continue to respond to the interested schools, but it's the idea of going to markets, going to places where there isn't IB, and creating a market space, creating that awareness that there is a need for IB. Before I joined the IB, and I'm not saying that this is me, but it's the impact of my team's work. We never approached governments like in the Arab world to become IB, because it was just assumed that this is just a private school thing and it's not related.
Right.
And I'm like, well, half of our schools in the US are public schools. So if it works in the US, why wouldn't it work anywhere else, right? So that's the idea, and I built on that, and therefore we've had successes in Jordan. We launched 13 schools in Jordan. We've launched 13 schools in 12 schools in Lebanon. We're launching those schools in Bahrain. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, and that's with support from my management as well and the team, is like that one size fits all does not work. So inside the IB now, we're really actually saying, yeah, we'll continue to offer our programs to the schools that really want it, but some other schools or some other countries or some other governments need an element of the IB, but not necessarily the schools. We can offer that.
Yeah.
Why not? It's about impact.
Yeah.
We really, and I tell people, if you really think that what IB does is valuable, then we should try to spread it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And in however way it's possible, as well as it being sustainable. And maybe a last one is, I had this idea of really building on the language and cultural commonalities, and created a region in which is the Ibero-America region, which is focused on Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries, and connecting basically two continents, two world apart, through one common leadership, but one common approach. And it helped us really create a lot of presence and stronger presence in Latin America as well as in Iberian Peninsula. So, I mean, these are some of the things that I'm very happy about.
Yeah.
Well, and you can see when you connect the things that we've been talking about so far in this episode, the developing, these people who are ethical and globally responsible and know themselves, how important it is then to share that out there with schools all across the globe.
Absolutely.
Haif, thank you so much for taking the time here to chat with us. This has been super inspirational and a really valuable conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
IB Unplugged is a Cognity podcast hosted by John Patton and Courtney Marlene and produced by Catalina Gaffney. Be sure to subscribe or follow and share with your fellow IB educators. If you'd like to submit a topic, request, or question, please do so on cognity.com/IB Unplugged. Let's keep the conversation going and support each other in teaching with confidence, creativity, and joy. See you next time.